Greetings everyone, welcome to this new guide. We're gonna take a look at leveling today and how to level from Act 1 all the way up to Act 10. In Path of Exile there was introduced in 3.10 a new support gem that is called Spellslinger. What Spellslinger does is it reserves a sum of your mana, and when you activate it through a skill like Barrage or Frenzy, it's gonna activate that skill by itself, so you do not need to click a button. It's basically an automated system, and we can utilize this extremely well, because if we take Volatile Dead and Desecrate, that means we're gonna generate corpses with Desecrate and generate Volatile Deads from those corpses. Those two is gonna be in Spellslinger, two different setups, and it's gonna extremely OP leveling from this guy. So just take a look at the background here and you can see how incredibly OP it is already from the beginning. So I switched over to level 24 here because sadly we need to use another skill until level 24, and then we switch over to this one. I'm gonna show you in 3 different sections how to do this. So basically how to get up to level 24, what skills to use there, and then we're gonna switch over to Volatile Dead and Desecrate and Spellslinger of course at level 24, and finally I'm gonna go through a little section what uniques to look for and other things that might be important for this. So those are the 3 sections that I can come up with on top of my head, and without further ado, let's get into the guide. How do you level from level 1 to 24 before you can get Spellslinger activated? I usually use Freezing Pulse because Freezing Pulse has a good AoE and it has good damage, and it's easy to scale with supports like all the added ones. For example, you can add fire, add lightning, add cold, you can do onslaught, you can do basically anything you can support it with, and it scales very well without a lot of investments in the beginning, which is great. We only need to get to level 24 anyway. So other things we might want to have also is Herald of Ice. Also, it makes enemies explode and gives some extra damage to our cold spells, and everything like that is very good for this skill. And there's also unique jewels tied to Freezing Pulse, which is called First Snow. You can get it, I think it is at Act 7, you can get it as a quest reward, and what it does is it gives extra damage and it shoots out extra projectiles from your Freezing Pulse, so 2 extra ones, so you're shooting out 3 instead of 1. But in the gameplay here in the background, I'm not using that jewel, and you can see it's already clearing pretty well. You know, like I said, you only need to get to Act 3 as fast as possible, so you might not want to even invest the time into buying all those things. Other things that I'm using is Frost Bomb, because it's great on bosses, because Freezing Pulse is not that good on bosses, so whatever I use as supports I'm using for my Freezing Pulse, I'm using the same ones as on my Frost Bomb. Again, I did not use it in this video and it still works fine, but ultimately you will want to have those supports also on your Frost Bombs. When you drop that one, it's going to debuff the enemies and also explode for great damage. Another skill I'm using is Dash, because I like personally I love this skill, because we're going to use it with Second Wind later on. But what Dash do is you can just get up ledges, you can get out of dicey situations very fast, and I'm basically just holding down the dash button all the time, which means that I'm gonna move a few steps like running, and then it's just gonna dash for me, and then I'm gonna move a few more steps and it's gonna dash. So this is great for movement in general. And also something you might want to have is Clarity. I don't need it right now because I have all the increased mana regeneration rate as I need because of my rings that I'm using from, yeah, basically we're gonna take a look at the uniques that I'm using for leveling at the end of this video. So those are the basic things that we basically take a look at, and yeah, I don't think I missed anything, or if I did, then I will just add them in the description below. So let's go to the next. Now we can start with the important stuff, which is our Volatile Dead and our Desecrate setups. What we use here is of course Volatile Dead in our main setup, and depending on how many links you have, I'm gonna go through them in descending order. So first we're gonna have the most important ones that you need, and then the further down we go on the list, the less important it is. So if you have a 4 link, you go with the 4 first one, and if you have a 5, and so on. So we would need Volatile Dead, of course, linked it with Spellslinger, and then I would have Spell Cascade as our third one, because we want to generate as many of those Volatile Dead balls as we possibly can. Then I would link it to Inspiration also, and it only works if you have Inspiration in your Barrage or Frenzy setup, the ones we're gonna activate the Spellslinger with. Otherwise it will not work here. So make sure you have Inspiration in that setup, because Inspiration will not be activated by itself through Spellslinger, because we're not using any mana in that sort of sense. And then we have Concentrated Effect and Elemental Focus as the last 2 links. You might not even get those 2 links in while you level, because you might not have a 6 link, but if you have, you can put them in there. There's enough space for that. Then we have in our Desecrate setup, we have it linked with Spell Cascade. Again, we want to generate as much corpses, so our Volatile Dead can generate as much balls in the end. So a great synergy there. And of course it needs the Spellslinger. So this one only needs a free link ultimately. The rest is completely useless. Don't link it with anything else. It's just gonna reserve more mana for you. And in our triggering setup, which we are going to use constantly to trigger both our Spellslingers, we're going to have Barrage. Barrage is super fast skill. We want to shoot out as many projectiles as fast as possible, so it has a great attack speed with this one. You're going to need a wand for this, so make sure you have that. And we want Inspiration in there if we're planning on using Inspiration in our Volatile Dead setup. And we want, maybe if you have the links for it, I added the Curse on Hit with Flammability. So when I hit something with my Barrage, it's also gonna curse the target. And because it's Flammability, it's -5 res, and it just synergizes well. If you don't have the setup, it's not needed at all. Of course, this Curse on Hit is just a luxury. Then I have Dash, and I linked it to Second Wind because it let us dash around much faster, and it generates more charges, and it recovers much faster. So you're gonna move around even faster than you usually would without that. So I highly recommend Dash. And you can use Flame Dash also. I just like the dash mechanics because even if you get frozen or shield or anything like that, you can still get out of sticky situations, which I find much more reliable. Of course, you're not going to travel the same distance, but it doesn't really matter in the end. You can also set up a third one, I know, but if you have the space for it, then you can also set up a third setup, which is with Wave of Conviction and Spellslinger. This means that you're gonna have exposure on the enemies, and that means they're gonna be debuffed at all time. Yeah, I think those are all the links, and I'm gonna leave the passive tree in the description, the path of building for this build, so make sure you take a look at that. It's not optimized by any stretch of the imagination, or because honestly this is just a stepping stone to go up to any other build. But I tested it out. I bought gear for less than, was it 100 chaos, and I managed to do T16 maps as soon as I leveled up without any ascendancy. I had not even done normal lab on this character because I was doing another character. I didn't want to wreck that one. So without further ado, let's go to the next. For the uniques I only used inexpensive items, that is 1 alchemy orb or a little bit more for a certain piece, like Tabula Rasa, of course, is like 10 chaos. And but I would just say that you're probably better off after Act 3 or 4 to just pick up normal rare items, because these items you can start using at level 1, but after that they start to degrade, and just normal gear would quite fast take over the race of getting better than whatever uniques you're having, unless you're switching it up. But I only picked like 1 alchemy items here. So for the wands, I'm using double life sprig, 1 in each hand. It gives us some extra level and some extra spell damage early, which is very strong. And for our gloves, I use Lochtional Karis. It will be up on the screen, I cannot pronounce that. It gives them some power, frenzy and endurance charges, which is very good. It gives us some extra movement speed and stuff like that, and extra damage. For our chest piece, of course, Tabula Rasa is extremely strong. You definitely want to use that one, because it just lets you not worry about the links basically. But I mean, we only need a 4 link ultimately, so as soon as you get the 4 link with the right color, so be on the lookout while you're leveling, you will be fine. I tried out with a 4 link in the end, and yeah, you don't need it. You don't need a 6 link. Your gold rim is very nice also, because you get some elemental resistance there. You don't need to worry about that. But the survivability, we're basically building a glass cannon anyway, so you don't need it. I had worm's malt lying in my inventory, so I used it. Obviously it's not very good, so you will probably be 10 times better with a normal belt. Wanderlust is good boots. We can get increased movement speed and cannot be frozen, also nice, but it's basically because of the movement speed. For our amulets, we use Courier Ward, also an inexpensive. All of these are basically 1 alchemy items. So increased projectile damage, increased movement speed, yes, no, so you can run through each act much faster. And for the little bit more expensive item, it's our Perender Signet, which is about 4 chaos. It let us forget about mana at all. I'm lazy again, and I just don't want to click those pesky mana bottles. So I use this one, increased mana regeneration rate. But if you use clarity or pick up some mana regeneration on the tree or something like that, then you don't need to use this. Also, it gives 4% increased experience gain. I don't know, that is very simple. I managed to do with this gear, I managed to level all the way from Act 1 all the way to Act 10, killing Kitava, and I managed to do Act 10 in 17 minutes and 10 seconds. So I think the speed here could have been greatly improved in the last act. Yeah, I mean, it's still really fast, but it could have been improved if I had some other items to switch for, because these you can already equip, most of them you can already equip as soon as you enter the game at level 1. So obviously there is no scale well all the way up. But I managed to one-shot Kitava as soon as he come up. I had 50 balls on the screen or whatever is the maximum now, and he one-shot it and went to the next. And there we have it. We finished our leveling guide here. I'm definitely gonna use this for 3.11 when that patch comes out, and I'm gonna start with this build exactly like it is now, because it was so incredibly fast at leveling. So, if you like this kind of content or like my content in general, please subscribe to my channel, it helps me immensely, and put a like on this video. If you have any questions, put them in the comment field below, and I will try to get back to you as fast as I can. Have an awesome day, everyone!